to one and all present here. I, Nitya, on behalf of Center for Human Rights and Humanitarian Law, ICFI Law School, the ICFI University, Dehradun, welcome you all to the National Guest Lecture on Mental Health and Human Rights. Well, before beginning the session, I have certain guidelines regarding the session. The entire session will be of 1 hour, including the question answer session. The attendees are requested to keep themselves on mute during the entire session. Questions, if any, can be written in the chat box and we can address the same during the question answer sessions. At the end of the lecture, a feedback form shall be circulated. Kindly fill the same for receiving the certificates. Now, proceeding with the lecture. Mental health is an important aspect of human rights, which is usually neglected and less talked about. Keeping this in mind, we aim to spread awareness about the importance of mental health among the public at large. To begin with, we have with us an esteemed speaker who would enlighten us in this field. Starting with the event, I would like to invite Mrs. Monica Carola, Assistant Dean of ICFI Law School, Dehradun, for this welcome note. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nitya. It's a privilege for me to welcome Mrs. Veena Krishnan ma'am here, because she has been associated with us for many years now. And her interest and her empathy towards the students, especially, and of course, generally as her profession also, she has been excellently helping people to gain confidence, to be more proactive in their lives, and to live a healthy and beautiful life. So I have known her for many years, and it's my privilege to welcome her here. ICFI Law School has been promoting studies in different fields, including human rights. And in this perspective, the Human Rights Cell has started many lecture series in order to make people aware of their rights, and in order to make people aware of different problems that we have in society. So in this context only, this mental health issue, which was pinpointed by our students only, that they need to have some clarity on these aspects also. So with this, we invited ma'am to talk to our students and, to be able to understand this universal problem, which is actually gaining, and it's becoming too important not to be highlighted. And in the lecture, you will understand why it is so important for all of us to have a good mental health. As a human rights issue, people having mental or psychosocial problems, they are neglected, they are in fact discriminated, right from education to employment, and even in the community itself. They are, sidestepped, they are neglected, and there is no kind of help that is given to these people. So it is a human rights, and WHO has also focused on this issue. It is important because our mental status will impact all our faculties. We will be healthy only if we are mentally healthy. And to enjoy, as they say, that human rights is about human dignity. So if you are taking away the rights of individuals, mainly because they are suffering some kind of illness, then it's a great violation of the human rights. And mental illness is an illness which even governments have been neglecting by not focusing, whether it is in terms of allocating budget for mental health, or if it is, creating other kind of infrastructure to take care and to help families with people who suffer from mental illness. Mental illness is taken as a stigma, and generally those people are pushed into the darkness, making life further worse for them, pushing them into poverty. Their families also suffer. So it is a great it is a great important thing that we should today be aware of, sensitize, and since the students themselves are keen to know more about it, I think it's a very good starting point where we can make everyone aware of this problem that is faced in our society and how it can be addressed. ICFI Law School has other centers also, like the environmental cell, cyber cell, ADR cell, and you have the constitutional cell. So the objective of these cells are to promote knowledge in their field, to make people aware, to sensitize society, sensitize the student body, and as such to invest in the society where we are operating. So with this objective also, we have invited our guest speaker today, and I'm sure that it will benefit our students, and we are going to take it further and take all the help that ma'am is having the professional skills to deal with this issue, and how to make our students aware of it so that they can become our brand ambassadors to help people who are facing mental health issues. So over to you, Nitya. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, before beginning the session, I would just like to address the Center for Human Rights and Humanitarian Law and would like to introduce to the people. Well, the Center for Human Rights and Humanitarian Law has been established in the year 2020, which focuses on providing the students, academicians, and wider community with a locus of intellectual and physical resources for engaging critically in how law impacts upon some of the compelling social problems of our modern era. The center aims to provide legal assistance to the vulnerable groups who has been legally, socially, economically exploited and discriminated in different ways. It also aims to train the law students and the community at large about the existing challenges of the pluralistic society and the rising conflicts and tensions in the name of pluralistic loyalties to caste, religion, region, and culture. Abiding by the objectives of the center, this time with an aim to spread awareness about mental health, we have the privilege to have with us here Ms. Veena Singh Krishnan, Senior Consultant in Clinical Psychology. And now I would like to take a few more minutes to introduce our esteemed guest before we invite her for the session. Ms. Veena is highly skilled and passionately dedicated professional in the field of mental health. Trained as a clinical psychologist from Central Institute of Psychiatry, Ranchi, with over 3 decades of national and international experience in her field. She is an acknowledged emotional well-being, behavioral and mental health practitioner in the city Dehradun, dealing in child, adolescent and adult mental, emotional and behavioral disorders. Has treated successfully thousands of patients with varying mental health disorders, successfully with compassion and effective evidence-based treatment plans. Ms. Veena has actively volunteered for professional services and time with Uttarakhand Police Department as an expert crisis counselor to minor rape victims and juvenile home for rehabilitation of the juvenile and delinquent children and supporting the mental health. In addition to this, she has an experience of conducting training programs for police personnel covering all districts in the state of Uttarakhand in prevention of substance abuse, human trafficking, victim counseling, and psychological first aid training and gender sensitization. Ma'am, we are honored to have you with us. And now we would like to present you this small token of virtual gratitude from our end.
Thank you. Thank you for such a warm welcome, Nitya.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite our esteemed speaker, Ms. Veena Singh Krishnan, for the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nitya. Such a beautiful introduction. And you really made my mental health pick up when you showed me the flowers that you were gifting. Thank you. Thank you so much. Whether it is virtual or real, the gesture speaks more. So now this beautiful topic that I got today, mental health and human rights. So what I would like to talk about why it is important. When we talk about mental health in our country, where do we go if we have certain problems or behavioral issues? All of us have gone through this, haven't we? If we had problems of conduct issues, we are not studying, we are not listening to parents, then whom do parents consult? Do they consult a mental health professional or a counselor? Or they go to Pandit with your chart horoscope and check out if things are okay and the grah dashas are okay? Huh? And if Pandit will speak his own ways of handling and supporting you through this, is that you have to do certain behaviors, and if you go consistently by those behaviors, you'll be doing better in life. In some time, maybe 3 months, it's just 4 weeks का phase है, 6 महीने का है, ग्रह दशा है, सब ठीक हो जाएगा, है ना? और ज्यादा गड़बड़, गुस्सा ज्यादा आ रहा है, तो भाई थोड़ी मोती वोती पहन लो, है ना? तो उससे सब ठीक हो जाएगा. और अगर रिलेशनशिप में प्रॉब्लम्स है तो और भी उनके पास रेमेडीज है कि ये स्टोन पहन लो, वो स्टोन पहन लो. सो आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि दैट डजंट हेल्प, दैट वर्क्स एज अ बफर इन आवर कंट्री. But supposing somebody shows more bizarre behaviors, so what happens then? Means मुझे आवाजें सुनाई दे रही हैं, मुझे आपको नहीं सुनाई दे रही, मुझे सुनाई दे रही है, आपको नहीं दिखाई दे रही, पर वो चीजें मुझे दिखाई दे रही है. I'm being able to see those things around, and maybe people around who are conspiring against me, and somebody is shouting at me, and I'm hearing those voices in my head. Then what happens? And supposing I start talking to those voices and you see me self-muttering and self-talking, then how is that interpreted in our society generally? Because it is taken as कि ऊपर की हवा आ गई है ना, कोई demon है, कुछ पैर पड़ गया है कहीं पे. And then what is the kind of treatment? I'm not talking about everybody here, but according to WHO also, है ना, so many surveys done, and long time back in 2009, it came out that every family 3 member need help. And if we take a pause, a deep breath, and think about our own families, haven't we felt at times that maybe I would have done better if I could deal with my emotions and my low feeling or my procrastination, my performance is not coming, I'm not getting appropriate sleep, there are certain incidents which have happened in the past, I've not been able to cope, मेरे दिमाग में वही बातें चलती रहती है जो किसी ने कल बोला है ना, मेरे को ये बोल देना चाहिए था, उधर से और मैं नहीं सुना पाया, है ना, हमेशा मैं ही बुली होता हूँ, हमेशा मैं ही अनफॉर्चुनेट हूँ, मुझे तो, है ना, ऐसे. तो ये सारे जो इंटरनल डायलॉग्स हैं, इस तरह से हम अनकंफर्टेबल हो जाते हैं. सो व्हाट हैपेंस देन? डू वी नो दैट वी कैन सीक प्रोफेशनल हेल्प? नो, वी डोंट नो, है ना. एंड देन again, according to that, maybe we need it, maybe our parents need it, maybe their relationship is not working all right and that is causing us a stress. Maybe my brother or my sister who is self-harming or causing stress for everybody in the family by poor anger management or poor impulse control, bad decisions, making themselves unsafe, using substances. So all these things are happening in most of the families around. Then somebody's child is so naughty that he doesn't sit in a place, and we just beat the child to control his behavior. But do we realize that 1 in 30 is an ADHD child? 1 in 100 could be a girl child who is in ADHD, and 1 in 60 or 80 could be autism. So all this is in our population. Out of 5 people, 1 will be depressed, and out of 10, 3 people would be suffering from some kind of anxiety and stress. So where is this population? When we talk about 1 in 100 could be psychosis, that I talked about hearing of voices and seeing things around where we have firm unshakable beliefs about certain grandiosity delusions or persecutory ideas or ideas of reference की जब मैं यहाँ से निकलता हूँ लोग मेरे बारे में मजाक बनाते हैं, है ना. तो all these things are certain behaviors which we all experience, but do we know? Are we aware that it is actually symptoms of mental health disorders? We are not aware. So 40% never go and ask for help. And out of the remaining 40, lack of awareness, they do not even know that we can take help. We know that ENT we can go if we have ear, nose, throat problem. We can go to a gastroenterologist if we have stomach problem. But we are aware that psychiatry is a branch. But are we comfortable? And so what prevents us into going? So we'll be taking up all these issues as we go forward in the talk. So what I was trying to tell is that out of those 40-80% population is gone. And then remains the 20. And supposing 20 में से 10-12% come and seek help. Immediately, because of the stigma for the medication and psychiatry, as in, then क्या आपको आदत हो जाएगी इस दवाई की, इतनी हार्ड दवाई ले रहे हो, एक केमिस्ट भी बोल देगा या कोई भी रिलेटिव बोल देगा, and there only we drop the medicine and drop out of the treatment. Treatments are so expensive, sometimes unreachable. We don't know whom to go because so many quackery is happening. Anybody can claim themselves to be a psychologist and start practicing without any background to clinical psychology. So what qualification do we require? What is the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist? So we have no ideas about these things. And then all of this create a lot of confusion around. Plus, basically what it is about the stigma that prevents us from asking for help. है ना? Words like कोई भी different हो, if that person is a misfit, है ना, doesn't know how to make friends, or doesn't talk much, or dresses up differently, or has a different body language. 9% of the population struggles while in adolescent growing through and understanding and expressing their sexuality. They could be on the other line of expressing their sexuality. So what happens if they are not on the average spectrum? Means majority jahan fall karte hain, if they are not falling on that, then how do we treat them? We immediately stigmatize them. है ना? Psycho hai, weird hai, crazy hai, and certain words we start using, and we kind of alienate them, है ना? And then the chances of teasing them, bullying them also increases. So there are a lot of facts about mental health. So slowly we will go about it. And in our country, if we talk about the prevalence, so 65% per 65% in 1,000 population could be suffering from mental or behavioral disorders. Limitation again is that they don't know where to reach. 75% of the population lives in our villages and they have no access, and all those hospitals there around their civil hospital go fall onto superstitions and supernatural elements. And if we go to the ancient times, early history of psychiatry, and see how mentally ill patients were treated, and you can just Google in how stigma in mental disorder, or you can see the images flowing up with the crude ways of treating. What they used to have this for psychological disorders, it could be environmental factors. Those are the external factors which can cause psychological distress or some disorders, or it could be biological factors which could create some disorders. It could be, again, my own perceptions about myself which could cause certain disorders. So, and if I have experienced some negative life trauma, then also we can go into certain disorders. So there are scientific factors contributing to certain disorders. But initially, what would we think? And why I discussed in my opening segment was that when we talk about, still we talk about supernatural elements, because we don't accept the scientific evidences that in 100 years, the past 100 years, this psychiatry and clinical psychology has developed very, very fast and rapidly with evidences. And last 10 years, it has brought tremendous changes in all kind of treatment and therapeutic measures. And we have evidences for everything. So how do we go about it? And how much budget does our government spend? Not even 1% of the total health expenditure goes towards mental health. And how do people handle mental health at home? I have seen many, many times families telling me that they got rid of their patient. How did they get rid of their patient? And they feel very proud when they talk about it. And what they do is कि ये तो लाटा है, इसको नहीं कुछ समझ में आ रहा है ना, इसका दिमाग कहाँ चलता है, तो उसको खाने का अच्छा चीज दे दिया, बस का टिकट खरीद के दे दिया, and I'm talking about up in the hills, and बस में बिठा दिया. Now he's lost his orientation, he is not aware about where he's going, and his own identity, reality contact he's lost because of the disorder. And you give him food and ticket and make him sit in the bus, where will he get down and how will he come back? And so you find such people roaming on the streets with simple schizophrenia, and look at their living conditions, and it's very sad to see them. And more so if we go back into times, I was talking about that for the treatment, supernatural elements ko kaise bahar nikalenge. So they used to drill a hole in the head, and literally in the skull they used to drill a hole which was known as refining, to let out the evil spirits out, so that the person starts behaving normally. And went as far as to practice lobotomy. So through the eyes they used to pierce the frontal lobe and do all kind of experiments, and many times the patient would become vegetable and his life would get so affected. So all these practices were going on. And talking about mental health is important. First of all is to understand, let's understand what is mental health. So we have to understand mental health, we have to go back and talk about understanding what is health. And all of us by WHO, we understand the definition of mental health, means physical health, because we all have studied it. And now I think in the curriculum school syllabus, when we study biology, and I think 5th, 6th standard, we learn about health and the definition of WHO's health. So there only we need to talk about mental health also. So it is a state, complete state of the areas that is discussed is physical, mental, social well-being, not merely absence of a disease. And COVID has shown us that finance also is a very big factor which affects mental health so strongly. So with time, let's see if they can add finance also there. What is mental health? Mental health is again a state of well-being, complete well-being, in which an individual realizes his or her own potentials and abilities and cope with normal stresses of life. Means bouncing back. They have the resilience to bounce back and be productive, and is able to make contribution towards the community. That is a simple definition, means how we respond back to challenges of day-to-day life and how we preserve our mental health. And there only I will add another concept of mental hygiene. So are we aware about this word mental hygiene? Physical hygiene, we all know. Twice a day brush karo, ठीक है, नहाना जरूरी है, पेरेंट्स येल पुश यू, नहा लो नहा लो नहा लो, है ना. विंटर्स में हमने 2 दिन नहीं नहाया तो और शोर मचा देते कि नहाना जरूरी है, एंड सबको पता है कि हेल्थ के लिए नहाना जरूरी है. बट व्हाट इज वन सपोज टू डू फॉर मेंटल हेल्थ? व्हाट काइंड ऑफ हाइजीन डू वी फॉलो? है ना. हम नेगेटिव थिंकिंग करते रहते हैं, हमारे दिमाग में गंदी बातें चलती रहती है, पुरानी बातें चलती रहती है. वी नो कि इस बात का आज कुछ लेना देना नहीं, पास्ट की बात है, बट वी कैन नॉट स्टॉप. Automated negative thinking we call it. That is ant. एक rumination इसी को कहते हैं कि वो rumination means like a cow ना, ruminate करती है खाने को दिन भर मुंह में, तो इसी तरह से वो thought दिन भर चलता रहता है. तो what is it going to cause? Because every thought will create a feeling, and if the feeling goes down, then it will again translate it into certain behaviors. Behaviors क्या होंगे, है ना. कुछ बिहेवियर्स ऐसे होंगे प्रोकास्टिनेट करने के, कुछ बिहेवियर्स पैसिव होके बेड में सोने के, है ना, हाइपरसोमनिया, इनसोमनिया. एंड कुछ बिहेवियर्स क्या हो जाएंगे कि अग्रेसिव इरिटेबिलिटी आ जाएगा, है ना, फाइट्स होने लगेंगे, रिलेशनशिप खराब होने लगेंगे. सो इट्स ऑल इंटररिलेटेड. एंड लाइक आई टॉक्ड अबाउट वन, है ना. सो कैन वी नॉट स्टॉप negative thinking? Can we not challenge those thoughts? Can we not be intelligent about it? Because I will tell you students here that you all are so good in counseling each other, है ना. Don't you all support and bring out each other from the worst of the experiences? And if one is not doing okay, you all are so good there. But what happens when you are involved? Only thing that happens is that you become subjective towards it, and you lose your objectivity and your critical thinking, problem solving mind. So you're not using your thinking brain there. You're still using for yourself emotional brain. And emotions really impair the judgment and the decision making. So if we learn to use our objective brain more and come out of that situation and analyze it on a piece of paper, then it helps to cut down the rumination part. Then again, another thing is emotional injury is feeling of loneliness. And loneliness, it's such a hard feeling for anybody to go through. And it is as bad as smoking, now research is saying, because it is also leading to bad quality of life, and bad quality of life where we neglect our mental health, emotional health, and our eating habits go poor, and our productivity goes down, and we become dysfunctional. It leads to death also, suicide also. So loneliness is again an interpretation. Am I on my own and I'm alone? So there again, our objectivity is important. And then how do we deal with our failures? These are all emotional injuries that we have been getting through childhood. Since childhood, we have been experiencing all these emotional injuries. But has anybody told us that these injuries will happen and it is possible to bounce back? We just get stuck there. Failures, how do we interpret our failures? Because as in, you must have seen many places experts telling that it is not the incident which damages you more, but how you perceive your incident or situation that damages you more. So if we use our intelligence there to interpret it like we would have done for our friend, we do the same for ourselves, we can handle those situations much better. So these are certain emotional injuries, and the most important is rejection. So school में friends नहीं बने, कॉलेज में आके फ्रेंड्स नहीं बने, या फ्रेंड्स ने वीकेंड पे नहीं पूछा, खुद फन करने चले जाते हैं, and I'm left out, then I feel so rejected. Supposing we are applying for some position and we are not selected, then how do we deal with that feeling? We opt for placement, and then in the interview we fail. How do we handle that feeling? Are we able to cope and bounce back? Okay? So how taking rejections and failures and dealing with loneliness, so and rumination, past incidents. And let me tell you here, the best thing about past is that it is over, it's done with, and present is in my control. But do we have that kind of judgment there, that we can really focus on our present and start working on our present? We are not able to when our mental health gets affected. So going further to mental health, and then I'll go into other details of stigma and how it is human rights are violated. So when we talk about health, what do you think gets affected? One, first and foremost, is your productivity. See, when we are healthy, then we will be doing what kind of work? We will be doing productive work. If I'm a student, I'll be able to study, finish my assignment, prepare for my exams, feel the satisfaction of giving that exam, and the feedback, I will take it in a healthy way. And if I'm drawing a painting, I'll complete it, I'll get a sense of satisfaction. I don't leave the projects incomplete in between, and get demotivated, and tearing of pages is happening, ठीक नहीं हो रहा, and making myself more frustrated. वैसा नहीं होगा, ठीक है, frustration होगी because I expect certain thing out of me, but I am able to get back till I finish that task. That is important. And second thing will be that I will be having fulfilling relationships, especially with whom? My own significant others. That is at family, my mother, father, my siblings, and then some of my close friends. It is not the number of followers or number of friends that you have on the internet. It is even if one person you connect to and you feel that that person cares for you is enough. And now when we talk about relationships with you guys, an answer to your loneliness is getting into all messed up relationship out of relationship and dealing with a breakup, which is so hard. And how do I treat my breakup is bouncing back to new relationship and finding somebody else to replace, instead of self-exploring and understanding what went wrong. Many times what happens is 90% of us dump the other person, and 90% of us get dumped. So that is a very normal experience, but then it is a very hard experience, because again, dumping means I'm rejected, and why did this happen to me? And had I not done this, तो रिलेशनशिप ठीक रहता, मैंने ऐसा नहीं बोला होता तो उसने नहीं छोड़ा होता. सो है ना, जिसने डंप किया वो तो मेंटली रेडी है डंप करने के लिए, बट जो डंप हो गया उसके लिए कितना हार्श हो गया, है ना. सो ऑल दिस थिंग्स affect our mental health because these are part of our life experiences, and adaptability also gets affected. Adaptability is ki how we cope with the adversity, hai na. So comfortable mind, if supposing you are trapped, you are in a rush and you are trapped in a traffic jam, then you're honking and you are getting irritated and you're ferreting and fuming because you have to reach on time. And if you have a stable mental health, then you will be problem solving in the sense that you will call up the people that I'm stuck and it may take some time, please move on, and I'm so sorry I'm causing inconvenience, and then you calmly go through the process of getting clear of the traffic jam. But this is a simple example. There could be tire puncture. Then how do I handle that? I'm kicking at the car, I'm getting frustrated. मेरी तो lucky खराब है, मेरा तो जिंदगी खराब है, मेरे साथ ही हमेशा गलत होता है. So, है ना? Or call up somebody, call a cab, solve the problem. Problem solving mind, we lose. Or intelligence, by definition, also says that how well we adapt to the environment that we are in. Every change since lockdown, aren't we seeing since the COVID that so many changes we have gone through, online, offline, hybrid, now the exams in offline, which has become a challenge because we got used to the online. And any change brings stress. How well we handle the stress, that is also very important. So exactly when the illness comes in, so all these areas will get affected first of all, and productivity will go down, and we will become destructive. Destructive means how will we handle our emotions? If we're feeling bad, then we'll get into making choice of using alcohol, or maybe we'll use some substances, which is so prevalent in young people, and that has become a challenge to keep you all safe. And you have to also understand that your brain, which is under construction, there are certain parts of the brain before age 21, if one starts into smoking or drinking or substance use, then hippocampus gets affected, and hippocampus is a very delicate, very important organ which actually regulates mood and forms new memory. So it is such a delicate organ and an important organ, and it grows to full maturity by age 21. And that is why internationally all over, drinking age they have kept as 21. And if anybody found buying liquor before under that age, so they penalize the shopkeeper. Very harsh rules are there, but we haven't been able to implement those laws so strongly here. And why don't we think and talk about mental health so much? It is a very important part. It is my day-to-day life. From morning, if I get up and I'm not feeling fresh, I have not slept well, मैं रात को 2 बजे सोने गया, अब मैं 11 बजे उठूंगा. So a biological clock I have interfered, and the biological clock works by the nature clock. And if I don't expose myself to the sunlight and fresh air in the morning, then I am making myself prone for mental health issues, depression. By again, WHO 2004 predicted that by 2030 depression will be #1 killer, which already by 2020 we have seen that. And why so much talk is required for mental health is because it is predicted that #1 killer will be mental health issues. Every 6 minutes we lose people by suicide, and India contributes to that. And India has come out in the survey as most depressed country. And see, women mental health in India is the worst. In recent to nahi, 6 years plus ho gaye hain survey ko, 86% of the women said in India that they don't feel rested, and 92% of them said that they feel stress, and they have symptoms of stress, and they are not comfortable. And why does this happen? Because gender insensitivity. We don't support, we don't cooperate, we don't understand. Out of all the pregnancies, 50% of the pregnancies go into miscarriage, and a woman is left alone to deal with that loss, grief. Nobody supports. Everybody feels that ठीक है, हो गया, move on. But उसके hormones went topsy-turvy, and she has suffered a major loss of a child. And she's supposed to recover by herself, postpartum depression. So it's a very vast topic. I'm just touching to give you an idea, and how far we can take support. But how many parents, if they have a negative attitude, does any child reach and get help that they want? So, coming back to understand कि सबके पीछे major reason क्या है? From the Greek word to mark, to stamp, to make a hole. And ये stamping की जाती थी. क्या किया जाता था? We all know कि cattle को भी हम stamp करते हैं to tell that it is my cow or my goat or my this thing. So hot iron, and we mark the person, so that mark will be there permanently on the skin. So किसको करते थे? They used to brand the criminals and the people that they felt uncomfortable with. So that is mental health, and the mental health, anybody suffering, and especially women suffering, witchcraft के साथ जोड़ा गया है, कितने लोगों को जिंदा जला दिया गया है. So इस तरह से brand करते थे. तो वो stigma word has come from there. And WHO defines stigma as a mark of shame and disgrace and disapproval, which results in an individual being shunned and rejected by others. So इससे क्या होता है? मतलब stereotyping होती है, prejudice हो जाता है, discrimination होती है, and कैसे देखते हैं इसको? अगर हम illness के साथ देखेंगे तो मेंटल इलनेस के साथ, तो कैसे हम समझते हैं इनको कि वीक पर्सनालिटी है, इनसे दूर रहना चाहिए. If you eat with them, if you talk to them, you will become like that only. They have lack of willpower, नाटक करते हैं, attention seeking है, इस तरह की बातें हम करते हैं. वीक पर्सनालिटी, they are crazy, they can be criminal, psychopathic हैं, they are violent, lazy, unreliable, joker, idiots, क्या हम नाम रख देते हैं. And black magic के साथ again and again India में it's very very common. Devil, curse, पिछले जन्मों का कर्मा उसकी वजह से हो रहा है. And anybody suffering from substance use or abuse, then how do we call them nasheri, ganjeri, addict? So it's not the person who has gone into addiction and he needs help now. It's a brain-based disorder now. We need to help the person, treat the person, motivate the person for treatment, treat him all right. But what happens? कि तुम्हारी choice है, तुमने किया, अब तुम झेलो इसको. Many parents give up. But if the child had cancer, they would have done anything to save the child. But in substance use, again, because of lack of awareness, choices made before 21 will generally make the population be addictive. But 21 के बाद करेंगे तो it is social drinking, social fun, and recreational purpose के लिए भी करके, then you will not get addicted to it. Your brain can handle it, and it damages the brain. और medication के साथ psychiatric medication के साथ कितना stigma है कि addictive होती हैं दवाइयाँ, dependent हो जाते हो उस दवाई पे, damage करती है brain को, बहुत सारे side effects होते हैं, है ना? आपका दिमाग ही नहीं चलेगा, आप सारा दिन सोते रहोगे, इस तरह की बातें होती हैं. And again, stigma, what are the types of stigma that one goes in? One is, most important is public stigma, which is so dangerous. All this that I talked about is public opinion. And then what happens is the person starts believing into that opinion. And they take it inside, internalize कर देते हैं उस stigma को. And then I'm incompetent, I'm useless, I'm a burden. And what it will lead to? Suicide only. Because you feel so much of shame about your own self. And you don't have the, you can say, will or intent to understand that you can come out of this. This is just a disorder, and if it's treated, you will come out of it. You start believing in the emotions that is there. See, feeling will remain for some time only. Mood is a sustained feeling. Emotion is a range of feeling which is for a sustained period of time, which may convert into mood. So this is how we explain the feeling and emotions and mood. So then certain kind of internal dialogue and the experience that we are getting from outer source, and we are bullied and we are stigmatized, and how does it make us feel? Again, a lot of isolation happens, a lot of loneliness and withdrawal from society happens. And then structural stigma is the third stigma that happens. One I told you is the public stigma, and then it's a self stigma, and the structural stigma we talk about. The institutions also restrict the rights. Means some officers will not take. आपसे पता कर लेंगे कि कभी आप गए, अभी कुछ controversy थी with the lawyers also, है ना, एक question था उसमें assessment में कि have you ever visited yourself to a psychiatrist or a doctor, मतलब mental health professional, ऐसे करके, and those were the candidates who were dropped out of the selection. So this is totally inappropriate, and this is against the human right. And denying of the presence of the illness. फिर मैं क्या करूंगी अगर मुझे इतना स्टिग्मा फील होगा कि अगर मुझे मेंटल हेल्थ इशू है और आप मुझे जज करोगे, तो मैं एक्ट करूंगी कि मुझे कुछ नहीं, मैं ठीक हूँ, है ना? I'll never go and seek help, and then it will deteriorate my mental health. डिले हो जाएगा ट्रीटमेंट में, and relapse frequent होंगे क्योंकि दवाई छोड़ने की जल्दी रहेगी. अब ठीक हो गया दवाई छोड़ दो, अब ठीक हो गया दवाई छोड़ दो. But what is the doctor saying? Evidence based वो बताएंगे ना कि कैसे दवाई छोड़ना है, वो हम नहीं करते फिर. And naturally violence and discrimination तो बहुत होता है, ठीक है? So है ना? So we are understanding कि why stigma is important for mental health and treatment of mental health. And let me go back कि जब सबसे पहला यहाँ mental health act हमारी country में and it was brought forward, that was I think in 1912. And in 1912 में mental health act was a lunacy act, है ना? And उसमें they just talked about a person being of unsound mind who is incapable of taking care, and that act was not for the patients and their treatment or any benefit to the patients. That act came about to keep away these people, to keep the society safe, है ना? कम्युनिटी की सेफ्टी के लिए, सोसाइटी की सेफ्टी के लिए उनको उठा के इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज किया जाता था, और इंस्टीट्यूशंस शहर से बहुत दूर बने होते थे और उसमें जगह की कमी होती थी. और haven't we seen news of all the patients jumping the wall, breaking the doors and running away from the hospital? और जहाँ कैपेसिटी सिर्फ 100 लोगों की है, वहाँ 400-500 लोग रखा जाता है ना? And hygienic conditions कितने poor हो जाते हैं, ठीक है? तो it all gets affected from there. And then again 1987, this law again talked about only that up till then suicide was what? Suicide was a criminal act, है ना? And police case होता था जो person suicide करते थे, और काफी नेगेटिव रहा है. उसमें भी कुछ ट्रीटमेंट की बहुत सारे नहीं, शॉक ट्रीटमेंट कैसे दिया जाएगा इसकी बात नहीं है, उसके राइट्स क्या है पेशेंट के इसकी बात नहीं है, कहाँ से ट्रीटमेंट ले सकते हैं, कैसे ले सकते हैं, वो सब कुछ भी नहीं है. बट दे ब्यूटीफुली यू नो कि अभी एक्ट ऑफ 2017 came about, and it is very nicely talking about the changes that is required in mental health, है ना? तो क्या क्या चेंजेस लाने की कोशिश की गई है इस एक्ट में. First of all, so it has defined what is mental illness. So there also again they have talked about very strongly कि disturbance in thinking, perception and orientation of the person and their memory that impairs their judgment and capacity to recognize the reality and take decisions accordingly. अगर ये impaired है तो it is a mental illness case, and rights of the mentally ill people were very strongly protected in this act. और कैसे protect किया है उन्होंने? इसमें they have talked about कि ह्यूमन राइट्स बहुत ज्यादा एम्फसाइज करके प्रोटेक्ट, अब इम्प्लीमेंट कितना होगा दैट इज आल्सो अ चैलेंज, है ना. बट वी ऑल नो कि 1987 में ट्रीटमेंट की बात की गई, पर ट्रीटमेंट के मेथड्स कैसे हैं, दवाइयों का अवेयरनेस करा जाएगा कि नहीं, साइकियाट्रिस्ट कितनी देर बैठ के समझाएंगे फैमिली को कि दवाई लेनी है नहीं लेनी है, इन सब बातों पे जिक्र नहीं था, है ना. और इस एक्ट को जरूरी क्यों किया गया, क्योंकि वी साइन दिस, यू लॉयर्स विल बी नोइंग बेटर दैट UNCRPD in October 2007, है ना, United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disability. तो जब ये कन्वेंशन साइन किया गया तो वी वर बाउंड टू टेक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ वर्किंग ऑन द मेंटल हेल्थ ऑफ द मेंटली इल पेशेंट्स एंड प्रोटेक्ट देम, ट्रीट देम and ensure their other rights. Other rights is what? Maltreatment से prevent करना, plus उनकी property के rights से उनको protect करना, है ना. And I'll just briefly touch about it. But before that क्या होता था, या अभी भी कुछ hospitals में कैसे कैसे क्या होता है, जैसे I told you overloading of the patients हो जाता है. And in one of the NGOs which went forward in Delhi, and they went into inquiry and they found out, and it is horrifying, that CCTV लगा के, है ना, ओपन में औरतों को नहाने के लिए, जो फीमेल पेशेंट थी वो खुले में उनको सारे कपड़े उतार के नहाने के लिए कहा जाता था, और कोई ऐसे प्राइवेसी के साथ वॉशरूम भी नहीं दिए गए. एंड वो CCTV फुटेज सारे जो वहां के वर्कर्स थे मेल्स वो वॉच करा करते थे. आप, है ना, and these patients were uncomfortable. तो मेंटली इल को क्या समझा जाता है कि उनकी समझ नहीं है, उनकी फीलिंग्स नहीं है, उनकी डिग्निटी नहीं है. टू दैट एक्सटेंट वी हैव सीन पेरेंट्स who tie their children at home. If he's a restless child, mentally retarded child, उसको कमरे में बंद करके जाते हैं क्योंकि उनको काम पे जाना है और शाम को वो आते हैं. उन बच्चों के कम्युनिकेशन स्किल नहीं डेवलप होते. Why? Because they just do not get eye contact and any kind of stimulation. And they just speak irrelevant words and making sounds of what they hear, of traffic or of birds or of any animals that they get to hear whole day. They don't even learn vocabulary, any word to communicate. And such a big neglects we have seen happening, है ना. कितने आप न्यूज में भी पढ़ते होंगे कि कई दफे जब वो ऐसे केसेस मिल जाते हैं तो it becomes such a huge news. And I think erode Tamil Nadu में 2007 में this hospital where 27 of the patients got burnt. Why they could not even run away? And can you think why could not they run away if the fire took place? Because they were all tied. बांध के रखा गया था उनको inhumanly. So they could not save themselves also. And they all were charred. And you will get all these informations there. It's all full of such experiences of people. So, and like I told you, washroom facilities, overloading of the patients, and then washroom. You go to any mental hospital which is not properly maintained, and you'll feel a stench. And you expect a person to heal there? It is really very, very sad. So इस कन्वेंशन के साथ हार्मोनाइज करने के लिए इंडिया वाज बाउंड टू, बिकॉज 1987 में ट्रीटमेंट पे हल्का सा नजर मारा है, बट उसके बाद ट्रीटमेंट कैसे पहुंचाना है उस पे कोई बात नहीं हुई है. पर हाँ, 2017 के इस एक्ट में they have really defined, there are 16 chapters and 126 clauses. You can find this act on the internet and go through it, please. And they have talked about here 2-3 things I really liked with my experience of 3 decades was advanced directive. So advanced directive, दोनों इसमें pros and cons हैं. Advanced directive means कि every person, even a minor, can tell and write. So supposing today I feel that if I get into any kind of mental health issues, then how would I like myself to be treated? Where would I like to go for help? And है ना, कौन मेरा ख्याल रखेगा और कैसे मेरा ख्याल रखना चाहिए? तो वो मैं वहां पे बना सकती हूँ, वो मैं लिख सकती हूँ, है ना, तो वो मैं कह सकती हूँ. तो that is what is very important. But advanced, we have to remember that we saw कि disturbance in perception, disturbance in orientation, मुझे समझ नहीं है टाइम प्लेस पर्सन क्या हो रहा है, मुझे नहीं पता, मैं चीजों को गलत इंटरप्रेट कर रही हूँ, रियलिटी टच मेरा खराब हो गया, मेरी जजमेंट खत्म है, मेरी डिसीजन मेकिंग फिर कैसे सही रहेगी. तो मैं कैसे डायरेक्टिव बना सकती हूँ इफ आई एम नॉट वेल, है ना. तो एंड कंसेंट ऑफ द पेशेंट, how he wants to be treated, and supposing the patient doesn't want to be treated, then he's not okay. So these are certain flaws there still, but it is much better that it gives a lot of power to the person how they can seek help. And I can nominate representative also कि, है ना, मेरी प्रॉपर्टी का ये इस तरह से दे विल टेक केयर ऑफ मी, इतना मनी इनको दे दूंगी, इतना मनी मैं खुद रखूंगी, है ना, मेरे ख्याल रखने के लिए किया जाएगा. सो ऑल दोस थिंग्स लीगली आई हैव द राइट, एंड appointing people also is possible as a caregiver, as a relative, है ना. तो what is good out of this is कि institutionalization, जैसे शहर के बाहर रख दिया जाता था, है ना, शहर से दूर रख दिया जाता था, उनको ऐसा समझ के कि they are violent and they can harm the society and people around. So we need to encourage that they can be treated within the family. So human rights कम violate होंगे जब घर से ही treatment हो जाएगी, and relatives are made aware and they are educated about mental health sign and symptoms. तो वो support मिलेगा. So right to access care, even if I am below poverty line, I don't have money, so wherever I live, that district and the state is bound to give me treatment, and every human being has a right. And supposing उस state में नहीं है psychiatrist supports, so if I have to go to another place to take treatment, then my state needs to cover that expenses also. So abhi, who knows about this? Have we reached out to the public that they have this right? This Mental Health Act 2017 provides that everybody has a right to get treatment, and for below poverty line, totally free of cost. And even if it's a long-term care, and still you will see people roaming on the street. You go to any Nari Niketan, I'm so sad to say, again, per month 500 rupees के खर्चे में उनका खाना पीना और रहना. तो what quality of life? And वहाँ पे destitutes नहीं है, वहाँ पे mentally sick patients रखे हुए हैं जिनको कोई दवाई नहीं, कोई ख्याल नहीं. And then if they are psychotic, then they start harming. And harming means, supposing I feel threatened by you, then what will I do? I'll try to keep myself, I'll try to harm you, kill you, है ना. So उस तरह के incidents भी हो जाते हैं फिर. So there are so many gaps, so many, we can say, areas which needs attention. Like I was telling you, institutionalization is completely tying up, resist, जो करना है, मतलब उसको जो restrain करना है वो बिल्कुल भी नहीं आप बांध सकते हैं. और अगर किसी को बांधने की जरूरत पड़ी है तो बोर्ड है जिसको आपको इन्फॉर्म करना पड़ेगा. तो ये सारी चीजें इसमें बताई गई हैं, बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग है, अच्छा है, बट वो इम्प्लीमेंट कितना होगा. और अभी देखो 2017 से now we are in 2022. How many people are aware about it? Huh? Every patient has a right for community living. Family cannot abandon. Family can get legal aid. And if this family has abandoned him, he can get legal aid, support, and living shelter. Halfway home जिसको कहते हैं, group homes बनाने का कहाँ काम हो रहा है ना. So we need to reinforce all these things, where we have to have a safe, hygienic environment for them. Enough sanitary. बहुत दफे mental hospitals में भर लिया है, लेकिन sanitary napkins नहीं है. तो कितना अनहाइजीनिक हो जाता है, इन्फेक्शंस हो जाते हैं. बहुत दफे क्या होता है, पेशेंट को डायरिया हो गया, फिजिकली, मतलब साइकाट्रिस्ट विजिट पे आते हैं, साइकाट्रिस्ट है वहां पे, फिजिशियंस नहीं है ना. तो all these things need to change a lot. and right to information, confidentiality is completely ensured. The patient needs to be explained कि treatment उसके घर वालों को explain करना है, psychiatrist को terms जो use करना है वो technical terms नहीं use करना है, और every psychiatric interview and diagnosis and conclusion of the disorder and medication, ये पूरा time जो लगता है not less than half an hour to 40 minutes होना चाहिए. But कहाँ practice हो रहा है ना? ये process है. Then only you will be able to counsel the family, psychoeducate the family, and help them to help the patient and sensitize the family to help the patient and support the patient with warm, consistent environment. So वो भी नहीं possible हो पाता है. No photographs. Like there was a barbaric पुराने history में मिलेगा आपको कि this hospital, I think it was in Britain, 1913 or 1917, this hospital came up, and they used to charge a shilling for people to come inside and look at the patients, where these people who would come as visitors would poke the patient, pull the patient, spit at them, make fun of them, और मजा करने आते थे. Dorothy Dixie, this teacher, who did a lot of work. She was not a mental health practitioner, but she was so sensitive to all these things that she played a big role. I'll talk about two people. Now this mathematician, let me remember, है ना? Just slipped my mind. इनका नाम मैं हमेशा mess up करती हूँ. वशिष्ठ नारायण जी, है ना? हमारे इंडिया में बहुत बड़े मैथमेटिशियन, नासा में काम किया उन्होंने, and in United States he was there. He had schizophrenia. He was sent back to India for treatment, and the year that I took admission, 1986, he was there in our Central Institute of Psychiatry as a patient. And after that, we all completed our course and we came back, and we heard that he didn't come back for the treatment, and his family abandoned him. He was seen many times. Some news came that he's seen on the streets of Bihar and Patna, and such a renowned, all the time he was writing some formulas and derivations, some calculation was going on. He was always asking for a piece of paper and a pencil. And I used to keep a lot of piece of paper, A4 को फाड़ के मैं छोटे-छोटे चिट्स बना के रखती थी, और बहुत सारे पेंसिल्स को तोड़ के छोटा-छोटा करके, because he used to lose them. So whenever he used to ask, I used to give him, and sometimes a cup of tea. Though he was not my patient and I was not posted in that ward, but still I used to spend time aate jaate, and good morning, and do you have a paper and a pencil? And he used to go on doing derivations. This is a story of a mathematician in our country with schizophrenia. I'll give you another example, John Nash. You've seen Beautiful Mind. You'll get his biography there. It's a lovely movie. And he also suffered from schizophrenia. Inki wife, inka property, inka Vashish Narayan ji lost everything, and he was out in the streets. But John Nash got a Nobel Prize. Still supported till the end. I think this a decade or 7-8 years ago, he died in a car crash. He was going in taxi and taxi crashed. Both husband and wife, they died. So the quality of life John Nash got to live, and the quality of life, unfortunately, Vashish Narayan ji lived. So I'm just comparing, है ना? Why? Because the attitude वहाँ proactive हो गया और हम वहीं रह गए, है ना? और हमारा system इतना supportive नहीं है. So I'm openly saying this कि हमारा system अभी भी ये 2017 law, है ना? You will really go through this and like reading it, and you will see it has made a lot of difference from the 1987 Act. But implementation ka, naturally, I'm again and again repeating, implementation is the question. So no information should be shared about the patient to anybody, no photographs published anywhere, no tamasha of the person, no visitors inside the campus of any mental hospital. Only the patients and their guardians who bring them for treatment will be only there inside. है ना, पहले स्टूडेंट्स भी विजिट करते थे मेंटल हॉस्पिटल, साइकोलॉजी के स्टूडेंट्स को लेके आ गए भीड़, तो अब ये सब चीजें, है ना, they have stopped doing this, and this is very very important. And if a patient wants their own medical record, then it's very important कि उनको दिया जाएगा. अब इस एक्ट ने, with that I will conclude, ये act, this act has decriminalized the suicide. So मतलब suicide is not a criminal act anymore. It is that a person is either suffering from some kind of life event, stress or depression, and need to get support.
Ma'am,
So-
can we request students that if they have some questions,
Sure.
are already
Sure.
quite tired.
Sure,
Nitya,
we'll take it.
are there any questions? And definitely, ma'am, we will look up this 2017 convention. And I think with your help, we can, if we can work in the field, we
True.
can talk to you and find
sure.
out how students can, help in creating awareness, if nothing else. That
Yes,
itself
very
will-
important, very important. Going in the districts and selecting some villages and doing, so word of mouth also works very well.
Yes. So can I ask Nitya to, if there are any questions? This is one point
Yes,
where
ma'am.
I thought that.
Yes, ma'am. We do have questions, and for the question answer session, we have Miss Anushka Semendra, and she would be taking up the session.
Sure.
Okay. Ma'am, with your permission, can we take up the questions?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, Anushka.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. A very good evening to all the teachers and Veena, ma'am. Ma'am, indeed, it's a lovely session going on. And ma'am, we have a few questions. So I have jotted down the commonly asked questions for you. Ma'am, the first question being that can advancement of human rights help us benefit mental health? And if yes, then how can we spread awareness pursuant to that?
See, so of course it will help, because human right is equal opportunities and dignity to everybody. And awareness to mental health has to begin from school. कहाँ से शुरुआत होगी? सबसे पहले स्कूल से शुरुआत होगी, वर्क प्लेसेस से शुरुआत होगी, है ना? All employees can be made aware, all school children can be made aware, teachers workshops is required, parental workshops is required, target populations are there, and we need to just have a strategy how we will go about it. Work on drug prevention. Prevention means substance use really affects the mental health and increases the risk of suicide and dysfunction. That is so important, है ना? It's not just कि breakup से heal करा देती है आपको, है ना? It gives you a nice feeling. It's worse than that, है ना? Much more, you can say, things are involved there. So violence against women पे sensitize करना बहुत important है. Anger management के workshops होने चाहिए. Mental health की, but it's unending. So much we can do. Thank you. Good question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And ma'am, the next question being, it comes from a person, they say that, ma'am, the victims of human rights often do not seek professional help and they rely on alternatives like fear of discrimination, as they believe that it can resolve them without any treatment. So ma'am, how do we acknowledge that? The
No, we
fear
should
that
not.
people face.
We need to see, that's why I spoke so much on stigma. That really prevents anybody to come forward and ask for help. But stigma breaking and stereotype breaking पे भी अगर हम लोग काम करते हैं तो, है ना, certain places where I go, nobody feels shy and awkward of coming and asking for help. In fact, they see my car and they accept, ma'am, I'm waiting, I'm first. So, है ना? So why? Because we have done hundreds of workshops and showing that जैसे बाकी physical health के issues होते हैं तो mental health के भी issues होंगे, है ना? तो पहले we need to work on that. And really, if we educate people that there is you can say how one does come out of certain situations, है ना? So we can take into account, talk to somebody, talk to some senior. This is bullying है. I'm just giving an example. So bullying में bully हो रहे and he's taking it inward, and ultimately changes his personality and his own productivity and quality of life, and पूरा उस person को entire life के लिए anxiety and depression का मरीज बना दिया. But had the child known कि मुझे डरना नहीं है, मैं आराम से, अब पेरेंट्स को नहीं पता, पेरेंट्स को मार के अब वो timid, मतलब naturally victim of a bullying, he doesn't have the courage to give back, है ना? So how do we help? So for that, teachers also, यार तुम रोज रोज शिकायत लेके आते हो, हैंडल करो खुद से. अब where does this child go? Where does this child go? है ना? So sensitization programs की who bullies? Bully is not the one who is bullying, is not a powerful person. He is the most complex person, and a big coward who is trying to take good feelings from making somebody feel small. है ना? हम जानवर थोड़ा है कि किसी की औकात दिखा के. अब डॉग क्या करता है? मेरे टेरिटरी में नहीं आ सकता, वो हर जगह सुसु अपनी मार मार के स्मेल, है ना? He really sets boundaries. है ना? We are human beings. We have reasoning, logic. We have emotions. We can regulate those emotions. And do we know that we can actually regulate our emotions and we can handle worst of feelings? We need to not run away from these feelings. We can allow it to pass. So वो कैसे हैंडल करना है वो भी बात होनी चाहिए, है ना? हर चीज की डिफरेंट स्ट्रैटेजी होती है. तो अगर ये क्लियर है तो फिर कोई क्यों डरेगा, है ना? अब हम कहते हैं मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता, तो कोई मर्द आगे नहीं आएगा अपनी बात रखने. क्या उनको हर्ट नहीं होता, उनका हैरेसमेंट नहीं होता? वो 98 में जितना अब्यूज मेल को किया है, I don't think so many women have benefited out of that dowry act than victimizing males. So it goes both ways for everything. I hope you got the answer.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. I guess the participants must be getting their answer. Ma'am, then we have a participant named Satyam. He would want to ask you a question. Over to you, Satyam.
Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, actually, in last month only, I went to HIVAS, that is Institute of Human Behavior in Delhi.
Okay. Okay.
Ma'am, one of my relative became sick of mental, that schizophrenia. He was having schizophrenia problem. तो मैम जब HIVAS उनको एक्चुअली वो रेसिस्ट कर रहे थे अपने इलाज, मैंने दिल्ली हेल्थ यूनिट से सपोर्ट मांगा तो उन्होंने सपोर्ट नहीं दिया. फर्दर मैम ये सेक्शन 100, 101 एंड 102 ऑफ मेंटल इलनेस एक्ट 2017 के थ्रू मैंने मैम पुलिस से भी हेल्प मांगा. देन मैम पुलिस
लैक ऑफ अवेयरनेस से हुआ है ये सब चीज. एम्बुलेंस का सपोर्ट मिलना चाहिए.
बंदा बीमार है उसको अगर मॉर्निंग
हाँ बिल्कुल, आप बिल्कुल सही बोल सकते हैं. हाँ, आपकी आवाज कट रही है सत्यम.
मैम तो जब मैंने पुलिस से हेल्प मांगा तो पुलिस का एक्सक्यूज ये था, मैम मैं आईजी से मिलने गया हुआ तो उनका ये कहना था कि अगर कोई मेंटल इलनेस वाला बंदा है उसको अगर मैंने सपोर्ट दिया और मेरे सपोर्ट में, मेरे पकड़ने में अगर उसने कुछ कर लिया तो इसका रिस्क कौन लेगा. मैम फर्दर उनको मैं बहुत, वो मेरे एक रिलेटिव थे, वो दिल्ली में भाग फिर के आ गए थे, तो मैम मैं देहरादून में था तो मैं ठीक था उनके पास पहुंचा. फिर मैम मैं ईवास लेके गया, वहां पे हेल्थ कंडीशन मैम ट्रीटमेंट कुछ इस तरह का था कि पेशेंट के साथ अच्छे से बिहेव नहीं हो पा रहा था. मैम मैं वहां तक गया था और मैम ना पुलिस का सपोर्ट मिल रहा है, ना हॉस्पिटल का सपोर्ट मिल रहा है. मैम ऐसे जगह पे किसी के पास अवेयरनेस अगर पहुंचा भी दे तो उनका हेल्प कैसे करे. मैम वो नॉर्थ इंडिया का सबसे बड़ा अस्पताल है.
हाँ बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं आप. बैड एक्सपीरियंसेस होते हैं बिकॉज सी साइकोसिस व्हाट इट डज इज इट रियली मेक्स अ पर्सन गो अवे, सो फार अवे फ्रॉम रियलिटी कि उसको कोई भी सेंस नहीं रहता वो कोऑपरेट कैसे करेगा, है ना? तो वहाँ बहुत दिक्कत करता है, अग्रेशन भी हो जाता है. अगर वो ट्रस्ट नहीं कर रहे हैं किसी को तो बिल्कुल ही कोऑपरेट नहीं करेंगे, है ना? उसमें हार्म पहुंच सकता है, धक्का लगेगा या इस तरह से. तो हाउ वी नीड इज कि वी नीड टू लर्न हाउ टू डिस्कलेट, मतलब इसको कैसे उनको शांत करना है, उनको कंफर्टेबल करना है, उनको ओके करना है. मे बी, है ना, साइकियाट्रिस्ट से बात करके उनको कुछ घर से ही किसी बहाने मेडिसिन दे करके शांत करके तो फिर इन पेशेंट की ट्रीटमेंट के लिए लेके जाना है. देयर आर वेज एंड सम हॉस्पिटल प्रोवाइड सपोर्ट, है ना? कस्टोडियंस होते हैं वो आपकी मदद करते हैं कि उनको कैसे लेके जाना है ना? अभी देखिए रिस्ट्रेन नहीं कर सकते, बांध नहीं सकते, है ना? जबरदस्ती पेशेंट के साथ नहीं कर सकते. तो ये सारी जो आई है उनकी डिग्निटी को और उनको प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए, तो वो चीजें फिर अलाउ भी नहीं करती एक हॉस्पिटल को कि जबरदस्ती पकड़ के ले आए. हाँ, ये कर सकते हैं कि वो इंजेक्शन दे देते हैं, उन्हें तरीके हैं. इमरजेंसी, साइकियाट्रिक इमरजेंसी, अगर डॉक्टर्स ट्रेन है तो दे नो दिस इज अ साइकियाट्रिक इमरजेंसी दैट यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट. इफ द डॉक्टर इज ट्रेन्ड टू हैंडल दैट, दे विल बी एबल टू हैंडल इट. Only thing, large hospital, they don't want to get into individual cases and you didn't get support. है ना, too many patients to handle. And too many patients का तो बहुत बड़ा issue है ना कि पूरे population में जितने psychiatrist हैं अभी available और कितने clinical psychologist train है available, उनका number इतना कम है जो qualified people हैं, वो पूरा पढ़ते नहीं है इस population के लिए, है ना. तो उसमें, और जैसे हॉस्पिटल में अगर कोई भी 15-20 साल का काम किए होते किसी इंस्टीट्यूट में मेंटल हेल्थ के, तो उन्हें बिल्कुल आता है कैसे हैंडल करना है ना. अब ये जो प्राइवेट मेडिकल कॉलेजेस साइकियाट्रिस्ट बन के पहुंचेंगे, उनको कैसे आएगा? they also learn, but with time maybe they didn't get to see those kind of cases, क्योंकि वो inpatient कितने लेते थे, साइकियाट्रिक वार्ड था भी कि नहीं था उस प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल में जहाँ से मेडिकल कॉलेज से उन्होंने किया. I'm just giving you just a rough example, but psychiatric emergency psychiatrists are trained to handle. That was just by chance an unfortunate experience for you, है ना. और ये अच्छा हुआ कि आपने एक्सप्लोर किया और ये सारी चीजें सामने आई. एक इंसिडेंट ही हमें बताता है कि कहाँ कहाँ कमियां हैं, वो सारी कमियां सामने आ गई. तो दिस इज अ गुड एग्जांपल दैट वी ऑल कैन वर्क ऑन इट एंड पिक दिस अप, इसको, है ना. और इस गैप को, अभी कैसी है उनकी सेहत सत्यम?
मैम अभी तो उनकी सेहत अच्छी है मैम. बाद में हमने वो प्राइवेट में गए थे
हाँ जी, हाँ जी,
के लिए.
हाँ
मैम फिर जाके वहां से हुआ, लेकिन मैम इस बात का कि दिल्ली का कितना बड़ा अस्पताल, मतलब
नहीं, निराश मत हो, है. हाँ, तो देखो आप गए तो आपको पता चला ना, है ना. तो बहुत अच्छा ये आपका एक्सपीरियंस है कि आगे हम लोगों को, है ना, एक फील्ड देता है बात करने के लिए, काम करने के लिए, सोचने के लिए. एंड मे बी वी कैन इन्वेस्टिगेट इन अदर हॉस्पिटल्स आल्सो, फाइंड द करंट सिचुएशन, कैसे चल रहा है, क्या चल रहा है ना. आप देखिए कि क्या, हाँ सबसे, हाँ क्वैक्स कितने हैं और जहाँ ले जाते हैं किस तरह से वो ट्रीटमेंट करते हैं. आपका दरगाह शरीफ चले जाइए, कहीं पे भी चले जाइए, है ना, बालाजी का वहां चले जाइए, किस तरह से ट्रीट कर रहे हैं वो पेशेंट्स को. आप देखिए कितनी तकलीफ होती है. they all can be made comfortable with little support. Most of them are there with conversion reactions, hysteria that is, है ना. and how are they treated? तमाशा बना दिया जाता है उनका, ये मार वो मार, धुआं खिला, ये खिला, मिर्ची सूंघा, पता नहीं क्या क्या करते हैं. तो इनह्यूमन ट्रीटमेंट्स के फॉर्म्स तो ये बैन होने चाहिए, ये सब रेड होना चाहिए, वहां जाके स्टॉप करना चाहिए, एजुकेट करना चाहिए. कौन लेगा, किसकी हिम्मत है इतना टाइम इन्वेस्ट करेगा, मिलेगा क्या, ये सोचते हैं ना. तभी तो साइकियाट्रिस्ट 10 मिनट में फारिग कर देते हैं पेशेंट को, और अच्छे साइकियाट्रिस्ट पूरे घंटा भर 40 मिनट तो मिनिमम जाएगा ही जाएगा, है ना. एटीट्यूड कैसा है मेंटल हेल्थ के लिए, उस पर भी डिपेंड करता है. तो आई ओपनिंग केस था सत्यम का, एक्सपीरियंस रिसेंट में हुआ है.
Yes. Anushka, any other question?
Yes, ma'am, we have one last question. And it's from a participant and the co-host, Nitya. Over to you, Nitya.
Thank you, Anushka. So, ma'am, I have this question and I've jotted it down. So I'll just be asking. So, ma'am, moral policing is an issue which has been observed in most of the Indian schools today. From a missionary school to a private school or a public school, which often tends to take shape of PTSD in a young child, often turning into a bad childhood experience. And most schools today are unaware and insensitive of the fact. And how, ma'am, how would you address this? And what are the measures which should be adopted in those schools in order to deal with the same?
So this is again a stereotypical judgmental values that the other person is holding, and they are not ready to assimilate and change with time, है ना. अब होमोफोबिया जब उसको बदल के रखेंगे, उसको ट्रीटमेंट करवाएंगे, instead of accepting that the person is going through stress of accepting his own sexuality, we need to be open and supportive to help a person go through that, है ना. moral policing तो अभी ऑफ लेट तो it's amazing ways में कहाँ से बहाना ढूंढ के कैसे moral policing हो रही है, तो जबरदस्त, है ना. that is one very important thing that needs more attention. Sensitization of the teachers is an answer to that. With time we need to help them understand कि मतलब उनके values जो भी रहे हैं, है ना, वो personal हो जाता है. But in a workplace, safety of everybody emotionally, physically is very important. and such things can be harsh. They are not disciplining a child, है ना? Punitive तरीके जब इस्तेमाल करते हैं, they think that they are disciplining a child. बचा रहे हैं वो किसी को, ठीक है? तो sensitization बहुत जरूरी है. And very good point you have brought in, Nitya. Very good point, है ना? Where we can understand the trauma, है ना, of the child who has gone through. And counselors, if they are there in such schools and mandated by CBSE and council, है ना? But are these counselors trained to counsel, or they are acting like a teacher, class teacher also, and then managing teaching subjects, other subjects, and then holding the designation of a counselor because they won't have to show that we have a counselor in the actual mental health पे काम हो रहा है. And अगर हो रहा है तो the counselor is trained to respect the confidentiality and has boundaries to respect every individual who is coming to her, or she is discussing things openly and everybody all students नहीं हमें नहीं जाना वहाँ, है ना? We don't want to be a talk of the staff room. मेरी मम्मी को बता देंगे. My mummy is a teacher there. है ना? So ये बहुत सारे changes आने हैं, from subtle ones to strong, है ना? roles. So you guys, future of, है ना, our youth, you need to pick up these things and be more strong. We'll back you with our experience, but then you have to be very active.
Thank you, ma'am. Anushka, do we have any other question?
Thank you, ma'am. No, we don't have any further questions. The commonly asked one were asked. Thank you, ma'am, for the answers, and I hope we have satisfied all the participants today. It was a wonderful session, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over
Thank
to
you.
Nitya.
Thank you, ma'am, for patiently answering all the queries. Now, before moving ahead with the session, I would just like to request the participants to fill in the feedback form, which has already been provided in the chat box. Thank you so much, ma'am, for such an inspiring and enlightening session. I'm sure our attendees must have realized the value of mental health and how they need to tackle it, and the importance of the human rights and their association with the mental health. Now, I would like to invite Mrs. Monica Kharola, ma'am, for giving the vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nitya. Ma'am, of course, it's always, it's an excellent listening to you. It's an eye opener every time we listen to you. And this talk of yours has given us many ideas which we can take forward for implementing through this human rights and humanitarian cell. And I'm sure the students who are coordinators in this program will take up these issues, and we will form a policy, a pathway, which we will share with you. And
Sure.
we would love to make you a part of this journey. And
I would
there
love
are
to be
many
a part of
things
it.
that, firstly, the first is that we examine the International Convention of 2008. Then we examine the Mental Health Acts. And apart from that, we can explore and see the mental health institutes which are there. We could
Yes.
also reach out to schools with your help in order to sensitize students through ICFI University, Dehradun. So, ma'am, it's been a session which has opened up many arenas for us. And I'm sure that students, if nothing else, they've been so well sensitized that whenever they come across, or even their own feelings, I think they'll be able to address it better after listening to you. So it's been wonderful
Thank you.
hearing you, and the opportunities which you have shown us, which we could take forward from here, they are immense. So I thank you once again from ICFI University, Dehradun. It's wonderful, and I'm sure you are always, we take you as one of us, and we'll be inviting
always,
you in
always.
the coming days.
It was
Thank
my
you,
pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
So
thank you so much, ma'am.
Take care. Be safe. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye, ma'am. So Nitya, you can close the meet.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.